I never expected to see my husband standing at the altar in a tuxedo, sliding a wedding band onto another woman's finger. I'd driven 40 minutes to deliver the medication he'd forgotten for his all-night shift at the hospital. Instead, I stood frozen in the back of a decorated ballroom, watching the man who'd kissed me goodbye that morning pledge his eternal love to a complete stranger. Have you ever discovered a shocking betrayal that turned your entire life upside down? Have you ever felt the ground disappear beneath your feet when you realized everything you believed was a lie? Share your experience in the comments below. I'd love to know which city you're listening from and if you've experienced anything similar. If this story resonates with you, please support me with a super thanks so I can continue sharing these life stories. My name is Rachel Wilson. I am 52 years old, and until that moment when I stood in the back of the Silver Springs Hotel ballroom, I thought I knew what my life was. David and I had been married for 18 years. We met when I was in nursing school and he was completing his medical residency. He was handsome, ambitious, and seemed genuinely impressed by my intelligence and work ethic. Unlike other doctors who treated nurses as subordinates, David treated me as an equal partner in patient care. When he proposed 2 years later, I believed I had found my perfect match, a man who respected my career while building his own. The first decade of our marriage progressed smoothly. We bought a lovely colonial-style house in a good neighborhood. We established our careers, David as a respected cardiologist, myself as an ER nurse. We decided not to have children, focusing instead on our demanding professions and enjoying the freedom to travel when our schedules aligned. We had a solid group of friends, most of them other medical couples who understood the unique pressures of our lifestyle. Looking back, I can identify when things began to change, though I missed the signs at the time. About 8 years ago, David started taking more night shifts and weekend calls. In the medical field, irregular hours aren't unusual, so I never questioned his increasingly erratic schedule. He explained that the hospital was short-staffed and that the extra shifts meant significant additions to our retirement savings. "Just a few more years of this pace," he would promise, "and we can take that extended trip to Europe you've always wanted." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? We were both dedicated professionals who understood sacrifices for career advancement. If he seemed more distant, more distracted when we were together, I attributed it to fatigue and stress. If our intimate life had dwindled to occasional, perfunctory encounters, I told myself it was normal for a long-term marriage where both partners worked demanding jobs. There were other signs I ignored: the mysterious phone calls he would take in another room, the unexplained expenses on our credit card statements that he would dismiss as work-related, the way he became increasingly vague about his colleagues and work events, the weekends away for medical conferences that somehow never had brochures or programs he could share with me. "You wouldn't be interested in the technical details," he would say when I asked about his conferences. "It's all just doctors talking about cardiac procedures and hospital politics." I trusted him implicitly. Perhaps that was my biggest mistake, or my greatest strength. I choose to believe the latter. Trust shouldn't be considered naivety. It should be the foundation of any marriage. David was the one who failed, not my capacity for trust. The night that changed everything began normally enough. David kissed me goodbye at 6 p.m., dressed in his usual work clothes with his hospital ID clipped to his white coat pocket. "I probably won't be home until late tomorrow morning," he said. "We're short-staffed in cardiology, and I'm covering a 24-hour shift." "Did you pack enough food?" I asked, concerned as always about his welfare. "I can make you a sandwich to take along." "I'm good," he assured me. "The cafeteria is open late, and I can always order delivery if I get hungry." As he headed out the door, he patted his pockets and frowned. "Damn, I forgot my medication. It's on the nightstand." David had been taking blood pressure medication for the past few years, a common issue for physicians under constant stress. "I'll bring it to you later," I offered. "I need to run some errands anyway." "No, don't worry about it. I'll be fine for one night," he insisted, but not strongly enough. "It's no trouble," I said. "I'll text you when I'm heading over so you can meet me in the lobby." He hesitated just a moment too long before agreeing. That slight pause should have alerted me, but I didn't register it then. I spent the evening catching up on laundry and watching a movie. Around 9 p.m., I texted David that I'd be coming by the hospital in about an hour with his medication. He didn't respond, which wasn't unusual during busy shifts. I gathered his pills, got in my car, and drove to Riverside Memorial Hospital. At the front desk, I asked for Dr. David Wilson. The receptionist checked her computer and frowned. I'm sorry, but Dr. Wilson isn't scheduled tonight. There must be a mistake, I insisted. He's working a 24-hour cardiology shift. She checked again. No, ma'am. Dr. Wilson isn't on the schedule at all today or tomorrow. His next shift is Wednesday. Confusion and the first tendrils of fear curled through me. Could he be filling in for someone? Maybe it was a last-minute change? Let me call the cardiology floor, she offered, picking up her phone. After a brief conversation, she hung up and shook her head. They're fully staffed tonight. No one has seen Dr. Wilson. My mind raced through possibilities. Had he gone to the wrong hospital? No, he'd worked at Riverside for 15 years. Had he gotten the date wrong? Unlikely for someone as meticulous as David. Was he having an affair? The thought had never seriously crossed my mind before, but now it bloomed, ugly and intrusive. I called his cell phone, straight to voicemail. I texted, "At the hospital. They say you're not scheduled. Where are you?" No response. With shaking hands, I opened our phone tracking app, something we'd set up years ago for safety reasons, not surveillance. According to the app, David was at the Silver Springs Hotel, about 20 minutes away. My first thought was relief. Perhaps he was at a medical dinner or reception he had forgotten to mention. But why lie about a hospital shift? Why not just tell me he had an event? And why wasn't he answering his phone? I drove to the hotel, rehearsing what I would say when I found him. I would be calm, reasonable. There had to be an explanation that would make sense of this strange situation. The hotel lobby was quiet, with just a few guests checking in at the front desk. I approached the concierge, a young woman with a friendly smile. "Excuse me, is there a medical event happening here tonight? A dinner or reception for Riverside Memorial Hospital?" She checked her computer. "No medical events tonight. We have 2 corporate meetings in the small conference rooms and the Wilson-Blake wedding in the grand ballroom." The name coincidence made my heart stutter. Wilson, but it couldn't be. "The Wilson-Blake wedding?" I repeated. "Yes, David Wilson and Catherine Blake. It's a beautiful ceremony. They just started about 15 minutes ago if you're a guest. The ballroom is down that hallway to the right." The world tilted beneath my feet. I must have swayed because the concierge looked concerned. "Ma'am, are you all right?" "Yes," I managed. "Thank you." I walked down the hallway as if in a dream. Soft music and murmured voices guided me to the partially open doors of the ballroom. I slipped inside and stood at the back, hidden by a decorative pillar. The room was beautiful, white flowers everywhere, crystal chandeliers, rows of elegantly dressed guests. And there at the front, standing before an officiant, was my husband of 18 years, holding hands with a woman I had never seen before. She was younger than me, perhaps in her late 30s, with long dark hair and a willowy figure showcased by an expensive-looking wedding gown. Her face glowed with happiness as she gazed adoringly at the man I had shared a bed with just that morning. The officiant spoke. "David and Catherine have written their own vows. David, would you like to begin?" My husband cleared his throat and began speaking in a voice filled with emotion I hadn't heard in years. "Catherine, from the moment I met you 5 years ago, I knew my life had changed forever. You brought light and joy back into my world when I thought those things were lost to me. Today, I promise to be faithful to you alone, to build a true and honest life with you, to wake up each morning grateful that you chose me to be your husband." 5 years. He had known this woman for 5 years, faithful to her alone, true and honest life. Each word was a knife twisting in my chest. I don't know how I remained standing as Catherine recited her vows, as they exchanged rings, as the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. I watched in horrified fascination as David kissed his bride, a deep, passionate kiss that spoke of genuine love and desire. When they turned to face their guests, arm in arm, I finally moved. I stepped out from behind the pillar, into full view of the wedding party. David's eyes scanned the room, taking in the applauding guests, until they locked with mine at the back of the room. The color drained from his face. His steps faltered. The bride Catherine looked at him with concern, then followed his gaze to me. Confusion crossed her features, then something else, recognition. Had she known about me all along? I didn't stay to find out. I turned and walked out, somehow making it to my car before the sobs overtook me. I sat there, clutching the steering wheel, gasping for breath as 18 years of marriage collapsed around me like a house of cards. My phone began ringing, David calling from inside the hotel, no doubt. I silenced it and drove home in a state of shocked autopilot. At home, I moved through the rooms with new eyes, seeing evidence of deception everywhere. In his closet, I found the hidden suitcase he must have packed that morning while I was in the shower. In his desk, a second phone I had never seen before. On our shared computer, an email account I knew nothing about, left carelessly logged in, filled with messages between David and Catherine going back years. I read enough to piece together the story. They had met at a medical conference in Chicago. She was a pharmaceutical representative who had been assigned to the cardiology panel where David was presenting. They had dinner, which led to an affair, which somehow evolved into a double life. Catherine lived in Columbus, about an hour away, close enough for regular visits, far enough to maintain the separation between his two worlds. The emails revealed that they had bought a house together 3 years ago, that they had discussed having children, that they had been planning this wedding for months. That Catherine knew David was married, but believed he was separated and finalizing a divorce. "Just a little longer, my love," he had written to her 6 months ago. "The divorce paperwork is moving slowly, but soon we can stop hiding. Soon you'll be Mrs. Wilson, just as you deserve to be." Mrs. Wilson. I already was Mrs. Wilson, had been for 18 years. The most devastating emails were the ones where he described me to her, portraying me as cold, career-obsessed, uninterested in intimacy, unwilling to build a real family. None of it was true. We had jointly decided not to have children. Our intimacy had waned because he had been withdrawing, not me. I had supported his career at every turn, often at the expense of my own advancement. By morning, I had read enough. I understood enough. I called in sick to the hospital where I worked, ironically. The same hospital where David had claimed to be working the night before, and contacted a divorce attorney whose name I had heard mentioned by a colleague who had recently gone through a bitter separation. When David finally came home around noon, I was sitting calmly at the kitchen table. The second phone, the email printouts, and his blood pressure medication were arranged neatly before me. He stood in the doorway, still wearing his wedding suit from the day before, his face haggard with stress. "Rachel, I can explain," he began, using the same tone he might use to tell a patient about a difficult diagnosis. "Bigamy is a felony in this state," I replied, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. "Did you know that, David? It's punishable by up to 5 years in prison." He blanched. I wasn't thinking clearly. I got caught up in something that spiraled out of control. 5 years isn't a momentary lapse in judgment, I said. It's a calculated deception, a deliberate choice, made thousands of times, day after day. "I never meant to hurt you," he said, the most cliché of all betrayers' lines. "What did you mean to do then? Live 2 separate lives forever? Keep lying to both of us until one of us died?" He had no answer for that. "Does she know about me?" I asked. "She knows I was married. I told her we were separated, that the divorce was being finalized." "So you lied to her too?" I shook my head in disgust. "Does she know you were living here with me? That you kissed me goodbye yesterday before going to marry her?" He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "No." "Well, she deserves to know exactly who she married." I stood up, gathering the printouts. "I suggest you go back to your other wife and explain the situation. I've called a locksmith to change the locks here at 2 p.m. Don't be here when he arrives." "Rachel, please. We need to talk about this reasonably." "I am being reasonable," I replied. "I'm not screaming. I'm not throwing things. I'm not calling the police to report your felony. I'm simply asking you to leave my house." "Our house," he corrected automatically. "Check the deed, David. It's in my name alone. Remember? We did that for liability protection since you work with cardiac patients. It was your idea." The realization that he had no legal claim to the home we had shared for 15 years finally seemed to penetrate his denial. He nodded slowly. "I'll go pack some things." "Take only what you absolutely need for a few days," I instructed. "The rest can be arranged through our attorneys." As he climbed the stairs to our bedroom, I made one more decision. I pulled out my phone and found Catherine's number in David's secret phone. I dialed. "David, are you coming back to the hotel?" Her voice was a mixture of worry and irritation. "Everyone's asking where you disappeared to." "This isn't David," I said. "This is Rachel Wilson, David's wife of 18 years, his only legal wife, as of yesterday." The silence on the other end was profound. "That's not possible," she finally said, her voice small. "David's been separated for years. The divorce is almost final." There is no divorce, Catherine. There was never a separation. David has been living with me, in our home, right up until yesterday morning when he kissed me goodbye, pretending to go to work, before heading to marry you." I heard her sharp intake of breath, followed by what sounded like muffled sobs. "I'm sorry," I said, "and I meant it. You deserve to know the truth. We both do." "Is this some kind of sick joke?" she managed through tears. "I wish it were. I was there yesterday, Catherine, at the back of the ballroom. I saw him marry you. I saw his face when he finally noticed me." "Oh, God," she whispered. "The woman by the pillar, that was you." "Yes." "What? What happens now?" It was a question I had been asking myself all night. What happens when your entire reality is revealed as fiction, when the person you trusted most proves to be a stranger? "Now we both make decisions based on truth, not lies," I said. "I've already contacted a divorce attorney. I suggest you do the same." I hung up, feeling no satisfaction, only a hollow ache where my heart used to be. When David came downstairs with a hastily packed bag, I was waiting by the door. "Did you tell her?" he asked, seeing my phone in my hand. "Yes." He nodded, accepting this as inevitable. "What will you do now?" "I don't know yet," I answered honestly, "but I'll figure it out, without you." In the weeks that followed, I learned more about the extent of David's deception. He had been living a complete double life, different friends, different social circles, even different hobbies. With Catherine, he played golf and attended wine tastings. With me, he claimed to hate golf and preferred craft beer to wine. The legal aftermath was complex. Our divorce proceedings were straightforward since the house was in my name and we had kept separate retirement accounts. But Catherine's situation was more complicated. Their marriage wasn't legal, but they had jointly purchased property and merged finances. She had left her job to relocate closer to him, believing they would be building a life together. I met with Catherine once, at a neutral coffee shop halfway between our homes. We sat across from each other, two women who had loved the same man, both feeling like fools. "Did you ever suspect?" she asked, stirring her untouched latte. "Never," I admitted. "Not until I showed up at the hospital and discovered he wasn't scheduled to work. I suspected something," she confessed. "There were too many unexplained absences, too many weekends he couldn't see me, but I thought maybe he had another woman on the side, not a whole other life." We compared notes, filling in gaps in each other's understanding of who David really was. In the end, we parted with a strange sense of solidarity. We weren't friends, couldn't be, given the circumstances, but we were allies in a way, both victims of the same elaborate fraud. 6 months after discovering my husband's second wedding, I sold our house and moved to a smaller place closer to the hospital where I worked. I filed for divorce, which David didn't contest. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he had moved to another state, starting over where his reputation wasn't tainted by scandal. Catherine reached out once more to let me know she had won a significant settlement from David for fraud and emotional distress. She had returned to her hometown and was rebuilding her life. "I wanted to thank you," she wrote in an email. "If you hadn't had the courage to tell me the truth that day, I might have spent years living in ignorance just as you did." As painful as it was to learn, knowing gave me back my power. Her words resonated with me. Knowledge, even painful knowledge, is power. Living in a beautiful lie is still living in a lie. It's been 3 years since that night at the Silver Springs Hotel. I won't pretend the healing was easy, or that I don't still have moments of rage and grief. Betrayal of this magnitude leaves scars that never fully fade, but I've built a new life, one based on truth and self-reliance. I've advanced in my nursing career, taking on a leadership role I might never have pursued if still married to David. I've developed deeper friendships, no longer limited by the constraints of David's careful compartmentalization of our social life. I've even begun dating again, cautiously, with eyes wide open. Sometimes I wonder if there were signs I missed, red flags I ignored. Could I have discovered the truth sooner? Perhaps, but I refuse to blame myself for trusting the man I married. Trust isn't weakness. Betrayal is. My husband said he worked the night shift, but I found him at someone else's wedding as the groom. It was the most shocking moment of my life, the instantaneous collapse of everything I thought I knew. But from that collapse came a painful truth that ultimately set me free. Free to rebuild, to rediscover who I am without the shadow of deception clouding my life. They say what you don't know can't hurt you. I disagree. What you don't know can steal years of your life. It can make your choices meaningless because they're based on fiction. It can turn your love into a prop in someone else's elaborate deception. The truth, as brutal as it sometimes is always preferable to the kindest lie. If you enjoyed my story, please don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss my new life stories. Your support means everything to me and helps me continue sharing these real experiences. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.